Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is the 6th of March 2024, and these are the stories that we will be highlighting during the course of the show. We'll begin, ladies and gentlemen, with the decision by the Supreme Court that says conditions of fair trial due process were not met in the trial of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. The Supreme Court expressed its opinion on 5 questions that had been asked in the Bhutto reference. They also observed that the trial under this 1979 judgment that sent the former Prime Minister to the gallows did not meet the requirements of a fair trial and due process. And of course, it has met with a lot of different kinds of statements by political leaders, especially from those of the Pakistan People's Party, who they say that after so many decades, they finally stand vindicated. Second, we'll be discussing the 152nd day of the conflict between Israel and Palestine, where at least 30,717 Palestinians have been killed, 72,176 wounded. Israeli forces still fire on a crowd of Palestinians awaiting aid distribution. It's not the first time they have done it, many a times. Despite that, there's still some kind of hope as far as the Palestinians are concerned of a ceasefire before Ramadan happens, so that at least during the holy month of Ramadan they can not be bombarded or not be killed and have some kind of access to food, water and health. But these still remain questions until Israel also agrees to it. This is going to be our second segment. Then we are going to talk about the Super Tuesday that happened in the United States of America, where millions cast votes in the 15 states of the US. And of course, Biden and Trump won big, while Nikki Haley took one state, and that is Vermont, which means that the main battle will be between Joe Biden and Donald Trump again in November this year, when the presidential elections actually happen. These are the stories for today. Let's begin with our first, and that concerns the decision that has come from the Supreme Court of Pakistan as far as the due process of fair trial of former Prime Minister Zulfikar Ali Bhutto is concerned. We've been joined by 2 guests. One is in the studio, a very dear friend, and another is online, another dear friend. Agha, Iqrar, Haroon Sahab, senior analyst, joins us in the studio. Agha Sahab, thank you very much to have joined us. In fact, we've been joined by 2 guests online. My first guest is Muneeb Qadir. He's a political commentator. Thank you very much, Muneeb, to have joined us. And our third guest is Sharmila Faruqui Saiba. She is a leader from the Pakistan People's Party, whose leader's decision came today as announced by the Supreme Court of Pakistan. We'll begin with you, Agha Iqrar Sahab. Agha Iqrar Sahab, the Supreme Court says the trial under the 1979 judgment that sent former Prime Minister Zulfikar Ali Bhutto to the gallows did not meet the requirements of a fair trial and due process. How do you see this decision from a historical and a political context?
Thank you so much, Omar. If you remember, you can say I developed or I released a documentary on Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. I always call it a murder case, not the. And this was basically very well known, and was became even the part of the document, which was a Muqaddame Ka Qatl.
All right.
So when I was doing this Muqaddame Ka Qatl documentary, I had to do a very deep research. And the first thing which was very tangible I found was a book written by the Chief Justice of Sri Lankan Supreme Court on this particular case. This was the only book available that time in Pakistan. And he raised almost 14 questions about Zulfikar Ali Bhutto proceedings and the hearing. And today, if I see the observation, basically it's an observation, it's not a decision. So these are almost similar to this the Chief Justice of Sri Lankan Supreme Court raised issues in his book. You know, I had an opportunity to had an interview of Justice Saeed Hassan. He was basically he resigned from Lahore High Court when Zulfikar Ali Bhutto case was under trial in Lahore. And in his interview to me, he said, when I found in a dinner that the then Chief Justice of Lahore High Court has a very great vendetta against Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. So I asked the Chief Justice, who was my senior, because he was, he was not a Chief Justice, he was Justice of Lahore. He asked him, you are so aggressive against Mr. Bhutto, who is nowadays is basically accused in front of you, so should you not, buck this case to someone else? He said no. Then the next morning, Justice Sayyid resigned because he didn't want to be a part of this vendetta, which was all planned.
Okay.
And during his interview, he raised this very important point, that one window of justice was already closed to Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, because the trial started in Lahore High Court instead of starting at the Session Court. So these are basically these are the typical, you can say, and then the interview of another justice of the time with another, in this interview he was very clear, this late justice Naseem Hasan Shah Sahab, that he also indicated the vendetta of the so many judges against Mr. Bhutto. So it was basically Muqaddame ka qatl. It was a murder of justice also of that particular time.
All right, so that's a very interesting point, and I'm going to revert my next question to Sharmila Faruqui Sahiba, leader of Pakistan People's Party. Sharmila Faruqui Sahiba, thank you very much to have joined us. A reference filed in April 2011 by former President Asif Ali Zardari Saab sought an opinion under the Supreme Court's jurisdiction on revisiting the death sentence awarded to Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. The 5 questions that were asked in the Bhutto reference, do you feel they have been ably answered by the Chief Justice of Pakistan in his observations?
Well, thank you so much. I think first of all, today is a very historic day, and a very historic opinion has come before us from the Supreme Court of Pakistan, and that too unanimously. We all had agreed in the past, and all the jurors, all the judges, all the ex-judges agreed to the fact that Shaykh Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's trial was a mistrial of justice. And today, that stance has been vindicated by the fact that the Supreme Court of Pakistan, the 9-member bench, unanimously agrees that it was a mistrial and a fair chance was not given to Shaykh Zulfikar Ali Bhutto to fight his case in the High Court, Lahore High Court, and also in his appeal in the Supreme Court. So I think this justifies our stance and the fact that Shaykh Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's case was never used as a precedent in any case. Fortunately or unfortunately, this decision or opinion, as you may call it, from the Supreme Court of Pakistan came after 44 years of Shaykh Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's hanging, and 12 years after the presidential reference was filed by President Asif Ali Zardari. But nonetheless, I think the family, the Pakistani people, and democracy stands vindicated. And the best part is that history has corrected itself. And as the Chief Justice very rightly mentioned and observed, that we need to correct mistakes from our past, and this strengthens our future. So I think this is something, it's a milestone in Pakistan's judicial history.
All right, Sharmila Faruqui Sahib, kindly stay online with us. We've also been joined by Muneeb, who's a political commentator and, of course, talks about different politics and understands politics much more than people like myself do. Muneeb, thank you very much to have joined us. Muneeb, revisiting the past, trying to rectify mistakes in the observations that the Chief Justice of Pakistan gives today in the Supreme Court of Pakistan, what are the legal or other ramifications of these observations?
So a lot of people have been alerting that this would open the floodgates from politicians or political parties who did not find certain decisions favorable. But I think that is false alarm. That is the kind of alarm that has been sounded by, for instance, Mr. Ahmed Kasuri, who was initially supposed to be the complainant and had lodged the FIR way back in 1977. But I believe that just as, Ms. Sharmila Faruqui here has said, it's a historic judgment. It's a historic day because this is what symbolizes restorative justice, by which we mean that this is the only way that we can correct the wrongs of the past. And interestingly, this was an advisory opinion. So it was given in an advisory jurisdiction under Article 186. What this judgment doesn't do is it does not go back and cancel out the previous judgment, but it takes away all legitimacy from the judgment, which resulted in the death penalty and the miscarriage of justice that had been, meted out to our former Prime Minister Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. And I think that our country and our democracy, which has suffered setbacks every now and then, needs some healing. And this is a step in the right direction. What this decision does is, what this advisory decision from the Supreme Court, and unanimously agreed upon by 9 Supreme Court justices, that is not something ordinary. That doesn't happen every day, that they're on the same page, the top judiciary of your country. So what it does is that it instills people's and public confidence back into judiciary and the independence. And Justice Qazi Faizi has indicated that this, is the moment for our apex court, for our top judiciary, to send out the message to the people, to the public at large, that we acknowledge our past fallibilities, and by our I mean the judiciary, and that we need to reinstate the fact that the judiciary today operates independently of any external influences, of any external pressures. And I think that this is a very emotional day for the whole nation, and particularly for Pakistan People's Party's leadership, because this is the day when we're really seeing Mohtarma Shahid Benazir Bhutto's words, democracy is the best revenge, coming true. Because this is the day that, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto Saab, our Prime Minister, who gave us the Constitution, who gave us so much actually in the name of democracy and civil supremacy, I think he stands vindicated. And for People's Party, the importance of this decision lies in the fact that any kind of, I think, miscarriage of justice, any kind of wrong labels that had been attached to their top leadership, who had given so much to the country, wrongs which had been done 44 years ago, the stain of that wrong has been removed. And once again, it has been confirmed that whatever was done was a serious miscarriage of justice. And Mr. Bilawal Bhutto Zardari has termed it as a judicial murder. I understand where he's coming from. I can only and certainly say that the judiciary of today is very different from where the judiciary stood 44 years ago.
All right, stay online with us, Muneeb. Coming back to the studios and to Agha Iqrar. Agha Iqrar Sahab, I refer to 2 statements of Qazi Faizi Sahab when he gave his observations. He said, we must be willing to confront our past missteps and fallibilities with humility in the spirit of self-accountability. He also says we cannot correct ourselves and progress in the right direction until we acknowledge our past mistakes. How important are these 2 statements?
These are very important. I mean, unless you accept as an institution that your institution had done something wrong, how can you improve and how can you move forward without doing another any accident of that? So we must appreciate whether he was very clear in his observation. Rather, the entire, you can say, the bench was very clear when I was following their, you can say, hearing also, and everybody was very clear. If you allow me, 3 very important points I want to mention.
All right.
Look, when I have an opportunity of having the interview with Dr. Khalid Ranja, who was, the big name, PhD in criminology, and then the Federal Minister also, and Justice Shaikh Hussain, he was the Chief Justice of Sindh High Court, and late SM Zafar Saab, who was actually, you can say, he was opponent to Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. But all 3 were very clear on 2 points. First of all, they said that there could not be any justification for granting a death sentence to Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, even not sentence. So they were very clear, and that is why you have already mentioned yourself, this case has never ever been cited as a precedent to another case, murder case, because nobody, neither the bench nor the you can say court, they are not ready to accept the decision of this court as a citation. And one very important point, the entire case was moving around a approver. So according to jurisprudence, approver, the court cannot totally depend upon approver until and unless there are only different, other evidences also. Even this approver, he did not mention that he listened that Zulfikar Ali Bhutto passed any order for the murder of anybody. Even his approval statement was not directly linked to Zulfikar Ali Bhutto for passing any instructions to FSF. So this case had actually no ground. And I remember, S.M. Zafar Saab, he was very clear. He told me that Iqrar, whenever this case would ever go for, you can say, revisiting, Bhutto would be exonerated from this case. He was not even accused in the case.
All right. Sharmila Faruqui Sahaba, I'd like to refer to two statements. One made by Bilawal Bhutto Zardari Saab, Chairman Pakistan People's Party, who said the court's views were historic and that 44 years later, as you yourself have said, the Supreme Court's opinion will allow Pakistan to progress and that the system will finally be put on the right path. He also said that this pursuit of justice was a labor of love by President Asif Ali Zardari in the name of his wife Shaheed Mohtama Benazir Bhutto. Our family waited 3 generations to hear these words. Bakhtawar Bhutto Zardari also put up a statement that of course vindicated the stance of Pakistan People's Party, and Asifa Bhutto Zardari said her grandfather's blood stains the steps of the Supreme Court and that it was a permanent reminder of the grave injustice that weighs heavily on those hollowed halls. How do you take these 3 statements? What is the sentiment going on within the Pakistan People's Party right now? Okay, we seem to have some kind of a technical issue. We'll come back to Sharmila Faruqui Sahiba. Muneeb, I'd like to understand. We saw Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif Saab also congratulating the Pakistan People's Party leadership and workers, saying that the Supreme Court's opinion set a new history and tradition. How is the statement coming from Prime Minister also in the context is another coalition government, a continuity of a previous coalition government as well? And we all remember the Charter of Democracy that both parties had signed as well in the past. Don't you feel such decisions, the statements also are a step forward as far as strengthening the whole democratic process in Pakistan?
Yes, I absolutely take it as a sign and a very promising sign and a very encouraging sign of things to come, which is that, you know, parties which are in this coalition or have supported one another to form the new incoming government after the recent election, when they are on the same page and they are strengthening one another and they are supporting one another when a decision such as this comes from the top court that cements civilian supremacy and democracy and rule of law, and there is a cross-party consensus on the same, it's extremely encouraging to see that this is exactly the kind of, I believe, cooperation among different political parties that would be needed to ensure a strong government, strong leadership, and strong democracy in the country. There was this period between 2018 to 2022 when I really missed, you know, the sense of cooperation and a sense of sportsmanship and camaraderie between different political parties, that despite their disagreements, I felt that sense of supporting parliamentary democracy was lacking. But now when I see that the PMLN, Prime Minister of the country himself from PMLN, he's supporting a decision which indicates the decades-long stance of People's Party, I believe that as a member of the public, I just feel very confident. And also, I think that it's very understandable why the Prime Minister has endorsed the advisory judgment that has come from the Supreme Court today. It's because, one, we need to make sure that political vendetta is not played out in the courts. The courts are not concerned with things which happen outside the law courts. And also the fact that Zulfikar Ali Bhutto Sahab's trial was tainted with so many irregularities. We later had judges disclosing the fact that they regretted delivering that judgment, or the Lahore Chief Justice had been in contact with the Supreme Court judge and directed that Supreme Court judge to be on the bench. When these kinds of irregularities come forward, you know, the Sessions Court had transferred the case straight away to Lahore High Court without notifying Mr. Bhutto. These kinds of irregularities, when a right to fair hearing is denied, it is said that justice must not only be done, but must also be seen to be done. If you set that precedent, it can come back to haunt anyone and everyone who stands for democracy, who stands for rule of law. And so it is in our politicians and our political leaders' best interests, no matter which political party they belong to support one another in seeking justice and in seeking to reverse past miscarriages of justice. So I think that it reflects a spirit of unity and another, I think, step in the same spirit as the Charter of Democracy when I see Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif from PMLN supporting People's Party in its moment of vindication and victory right now.
All right, Muneeb, stay online. Sharmila Faruqui Sahiba, I was just referring to the three statements made by Bilawal Bhutto Zardari Sahab, Asifa Bhutto Zardari Sahiba and Bakhtawar Bhutto Zardari Sahiba, in which they, of course, in their different forms and manifestations, lauded these observations by the Supreme Court of Pakistan. How do you see these comments that are, of course, publicly available on Twitter or on X? And what is the basic environment right now within the crux of the Pakistan People's Party? How do you see these observations generally, and how do you see the justice system moving forward?
Well, I think, as I said earlier, this is a very historic day, and it's a very, very historic opinion coming from a 9-member bench of the Supreme Court of Pakistan. Especially, it's a very, very emotional day and an emotional moment for the Bhutto family, especially for the grandchildren of Shaheed Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. I was once having a conversation with some jurists, and they said, that when Shaheed Mohtarma Benazir Bhutto Sahiba became the Prime Minister for the first time, he called for all the files of Shaheed Bhutto's trial from the Establishment Division, from the Justice Department, and she was very, very particular about that case, and she wanted to find a way out how to rectify this, judicial murder and how to vindicate her father. And I think that's one of the reasons that President Asif Ali Zardari, when he became the president of Pakistan, he sent in a presidential reference, hoping that one day his wife, his beloved daughter, Shaheed Mohtarma Benazir Bhutto, would be vindicated in her stance that her father was politically murdered. And today, as we stand and we read this opinion, I think Shaheed Bibi must be smiling from the heavens. And it was a very, very emotional day for Chairman Bilawal Bhutto Zardari Sahab, as you must have seen in one of the videos where when the opinion was being read out by the Chief Justice, he was teary-eyed. And that has been the feeling within the party, with all of us. I think all of us, we've always had this very aggressive stance that Shaheed Zulfikar Ali Bhutto was murdered in a judicial decree. And we always, our slogan is Zinda hai Bhutto Zinda hai, or Aaj bhi Bhutto Zinda hai, Kal bhi Bhutto Zinda tha. And that has now been vindicated. So it's again, all of us are emotional. Most of us have not even seen Shaheed Zulfikar Ali Bhutto in person, but we've seen his videos, we've seen how he fought for democracy, how he brought in so many, landmark, things in Pakistan, starting from the constitution, making Pakistan an atomic power, so many things. And, a great human, a great political leader was lost just because, because of fear and pressure. Some judges succumbed to the fear and pressure of the dictator of that time, and hanged Shaheed Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. And as the Chief Justice gave his opinion that, we should be willing to confront our past missteps with humility, that the spirit of self-accountability should be there. And that ensures that, you're committed to ensuring justice in future with unwavering integrity and fidelity to the law. And until and unless we don't correct ourselves, there can be no tangible progress in the right direction. We have to admit our past mistakes. We have to acknowledge them. This is part of self-accountability. Because if you are at the helm of affairs, where you are on a position to dispense justice to millions of people, then you should be able to accept and acknowledge your past mistakes and correct it, so that people have faith in you. But I think this is something so important. I mean, this decision will have everlasting effects on so many issues in Pakistan, on the future judicial policies, and how the current and future judges will be taking an extra precautious step to impart free and fair trial and dispense justice
so
without fear.
I think it's an important day. It's an important day for justice, and it's an important day for the Pakistan People's Party, and it's an important day for Pakistan as well. As our Prime Minister said, it is not possible to correct the historical mistake, but by the recognition of a serious mistake, a new history and a new tradition have been established. Thank you very much, Sharmila, Faruqui Sahiba, and thank you very much. We're a bit short of time. I'm really sorry. I would have loved to continue with you, Agha, Iqrar, Haroon Saab, and Muneeb. Thank you very much, Muneeb, as well, to have joined us. I hope to see you very soon. This ends our first the most important story of the day. Our second story, of course, is equally important, and that is day 152 of the Israel-Palestine conflict, war, genocide that has been going on unabated. And of course, as we see, there is no stopping as far as Israel is concerned and its brutalities is concerned. There is some kind of hope. As far as ceasefire is concerned, there are talks that are going on. All the parties are optimistic, but Israel has yet to join the fray. We've been joined by Maleeha Lodhi Sahiba, former ambassador to the United Nations, to discuss this very important topic. Maleeha Lodhi Sahiba, of course, we all know, understands Pakistan's stance on international affairs when it comes, whether it be the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, or Pakistan's positioning on international issues, as she has, of course, very ably been highlighting that in the auspices of the United Nations. And of course, when you look at all that has been going on of recently, we also know that an extraordinary meeting of the OIC Council of Foreign Ministers to discuss this continued aggression against the Palestinian people was also held in the OIC headquarters in Jeddah, where the meeting in the backdrop of all these atrocities against the Palestinians and this planned invasion of Rafah, which would be disastrous as far as many commentators and the United Nations have themselves said, as well as the humanitarian and health crisis that is engulfing slowly and steadily all the people in Gaza. Maleeha Lodhi Sahiba, thank you very much to have joined us. Ma'am, people in Gaza are waiting for the outcome of the ceasefire talks amid these continued Israeli attacks. Although there is a lot of optimism, but Israel has yet to join this whole discussions and give a statement as to whether it is ready to comply with this agreement. What happens in your point of view with this deal? Will it lead to some development before the holy month of Ramadan comes upon us?
Well, as you know, the main idea is to get a 40-day ceasefire in time for Ramadan to start. So on the eve of Ramadan, they would like the ceasefire to take place and to stick. But I'm afraid the talks seem to have reached an impasse, because what the United States wants Hamas to do is not something that we are seeing a response from them. Hamas obviously wants a permanent ceasefire. They also want Israel to withdraw from the areas that they have occupied in Gaza. At the same time, as you know, the UN Security Council has also been trying to get some kind of agreed language for a draft resolution, which also calls for a ceasefire. But again, it's a temporary ceasefire. Look, we've seen 5 months of Israel's war on Gaza. We've seen a humanitarian disaster that has been unfolding of epic proportions. The kind of human suffering I don't think any of us have seen, certainly in our lifetime. We have seen aid deliveries becoming harder, and Israel stopping these aid deliveries. Famine is threatened. And you know, if you've been on the social media, I don't know if you saw the picture. It was a chilling picture of a girl of 15 who had died in a Gaza hospital from dehydration. So all you could see of this girl was just bones. So this is the state of play on the ground while all of these talks take place, and then these talks are about temporary ceasefire. Look, the war has to end. What is needed is a permanent ceasefire. But that's not happening because the United States still refuses to back a permanent ceasefire.
But what is the intention? What I fail to understand is, Ma'am Lodhi, what is the intention? Why not have a permanent ceasefire? What is the end game? What is the plan that Israel or its Western backers have in mind that prevents them from going for a permanent ceasefire?
I think that's a very valid question. You're absolutely right. I think the United States has become hostage to Israel's aggression. They're unable to really prevail on Israel, or maybe they don't want to prevail on Israel. But when you say game plan, the game plan is very clear from Israel's point of view. What they are carrying out is ethnic cleansing. They are committing genocide. They want to depopulate Gaza. They want to throw the Palestinians out of their own land. And they want to occupy that place, something that they've done throughout these decades in any case. So I think when you say, what does the West want? Remember, much of the West, apart, I think, from the United Kingdom, the other countries have now stepped back. They're all calling for a permanent ceasefire. And they're calling for this war to end. It's only the United States that's still standing in the way of a ceasefire, a permanent ceasefire. And therefore, it is the country that is standing between war and peace.
All right. Maleeha Lodhi Sahiba, when it comes to the casualties, they increase with every passing day. 30,700 plus Palestinians have been butchered. More than 72,000 have been injured. And then we've also talked about the malnutrition, the famine, the dehydration that is, slowly and steadily creeping into specifically the children and the, young adults in Palestine. Israel has prevented water filters, and I'd like to have your comment on that. Israel has prevented water filters provided by the British government from entering the Gaza Strip, saying that they were a threat, according to Rosina Ali Khan, who's a British member of parliament. And she posted this on Twitter. The spokesperson for COGAT, which is the Israeli unit tasked with administering security matters within Gaza, denies that Israeli restrictions are blocking flow of aid into Gaza. Instead, he says Israel is inspecting and clearing so much aid that humanitarian groups can't keep up. Who should we believe?
I think it's pretty clear who we should believe. I think all you have to do is look at the ground situation. The question is not of belief. The question is clearly how Israel, first of all, by carrying on a war, 5 months of a war that they have unleashed on innocent, unarmed people, on women, on children, elderly people, people who have nothing to do with Hamas, if that is what that is what their rationale is. So it's pretty clear Israel is standing in the way, which is why Israel has also become the target of increasing criticism by many Western countries. Of course, the Muslim countries have been criticizing Israel from the word go. But Israel's failure to allow humanitarian assistance to go in on the scale that is required is very clearly it's part of their strategy. What is their strategy? The strategy is genocide, depopulate, ethnic cleansing, throw the Palestinians out, and they are making them not just suffer, they're making them starve. They're actually using starvation as a tool of policy. So it's very clear what they are doing, but it's also clear and very disappointing and heartbreaking that the world is unable to stop this. The world is unable to stop what is happening to the Palestinian people.
All right, Maleeha Lodhi Sahiba, the chief of UNRWA warns that the worst may yet be coming as far as people in Gaza is concerned. The Palestinian Foreign Ministry talks about all the hundreds of thousands of people that are cramped in a small place, and then there is all this talk of a ground invasion on Rafah as we speak, something that Israel has not backed off from it as of yet. Then to add to it, there is also a regional aspect to it all, with the Houthis entering the fray, and they are targeting ships in the Red Sea since mid-November and promising the attacks will continue till the Gaza war is halted and aid reaches besieged Palestinians. All of this is interrelated, but do you feel this conflict has already escalated beyond Palestine?
Well, yes, you can see how many regional countries are involved in this already. But I think the danger of an even wider conflict continues and will continue until this war is brought to an end. So we are looking at one suffering on a massive scale. And we're also looking at, I think, another factor that must be mentioned, which is the kind of resentment and horror that we find amongst the Muslim public across the Islamic world. I think this is something that maybe the United States doesn't seem to realize, that the cost of its one-sided, blind support of Israel has led to a situation where they've lost absolutely any kind of confidence amongst the people of the Muslim world. And I think we should also remember that the Biden administration, or President Biden himself, who is running, as you know, for re-election, has been losing ground amongst his own supporters, his own party supporters, amongst the young and amongst the more liberal Democrats. They do not support what Biden is doing in supporting Israel carrying out this genocide in Gaza.
You know, it's not just the United States, ma'am. It's also the former leader of the British Labour Party who has said that Gaza was a test of our common humanity, and political leaders that has failed. Jeremy Corbyn, and I quote him on Twitter, said their moral authority lies under the rubble along with the thousands of lives that could have been saved by a ceasefire. Is the political landscape going to change as a result of the deliberate narrative or stance that certain countries in the West have taken vis-a-vis Israel?
Well, again, let's be clear. Certain countries are just two countries now. I think most of the other countries, maybe one or two small European countries, but France changed its position. It still supports a permanent ceasefire. Other countries, Spain, Italy, others also. So let's be clear. I mean, the West is not really united anymore on this. Maybe they started off that way by indicating their support for Israel. But as the civilian casualties mounted, look, 30,000 people dead in 5 months is horrific. It's an outrage. So I think you're right in the sense that the consequences of this will be there for a long time to come in terms of how, many of these or some of these Western countries are seen by the rest of the world. Look, the rest of the world is on one side and 2 or 3 countries are on the other side supporting Israel. That's a fact. And then you would recall the International Court of Justice, what they said and what they said to Israel, asking them to do everything to prevent a genocide. But what is Israel doing? They were completely, they violated not just Security Council resolutions, they've also violated the orders of the International Court of Justice with impunity. So, yes, there will be consequences. But for now, it is the suffering of the Palestinian people that is, real and present.
Maleeha Lodhi Sahib, there's a different narrative that is being built as far as certain countries in the West. You named 2, there are others as well. As far as their media is concerned, as to which side the people should believe in. A report by a media watchdog, Center for Media Monitoring, reveals that the British media bias in covering the Hamas attack on the 7th October and Israel's response has been very, very apparent. It talks about ignoring the context and history of the occupation of Palestine and Gaza, treating the Israeli military as a credible source without subjecting it to further verification, difference in the use of language when covering these events, the Palestinian deaths underplayed compared with those of the Israelis, pro-Palestinian voices and activists routinely denounced. Is this bias going to continue, or will it be downplayed by the voice of the people that understand the truth?
First of all, remember, this is not new. It's not breaking news. The Western media has always been one-sided, and by the kind of coverage that they have given on the issue of Palestine. It's not new. Remember also the way the Western media played the American invasion of Iraq. Tens of thousands of Iraqis were killed and massacred. And what did the Western media do? They didn't really critique this. I mean, they may have been the odd sort of, paper that may have done it or magazine that may have done it. But generally speaking, the Western media basically just echoed the official line of their government and never even questioned it. It's only later, when things began to go wrong, that they began to sort of do a ex post facto sort of a assessment of how their government had behaved in Iraq. So, one, it's nothing new. But 2, I think it's shameful. It's absolutely shameful. And I think what it has done is to really erode, if I can use that word, although I think I should use a stronger word, erode the confidence of people in their own countries, but also in the rest of the world, in the credibility of the Western media.
Well, we understand how narrative is built and how there's a lot of question marks as far as the credibility of the Western media is concerned. But let's hope for some kind of tangible result, at least starting with a temporary ceasefire, and then maybe during these 30 or 40 days, if the ceasefire actually is implemented during the holy month of Ramadan, that there could be some sane voices that could change this whole scenario of the genocide, the ethnic cleansing that has been going on in Palestine. Thank you very much, Maleeha, Lodhi Sahiba, to have given us the time and your able comments on this very, very burning issue. We will end, ladies and gentlemen, with the Super Tuesday that happened this Tuesday in the United States of America. This is a significant event during a presidential election year. Typically occurs on a Tuesday in February or March. On this day, several states hold presidential primaries, primary elections. This, of course, is a crucial moment because it ascertains how things are going to move forward. There were 15 states: Alabama, Alaska, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Maine, Massachusetts, Minnesota, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Vermont, and Virginia that participated in the primaries. Now, there were primaries for the Republicans and there were also for the Democrats. What is seen is that Donald Trump has come winners as far as the Republican side is concerned, and of course Joe Biden. Trump wins the Republican vote in a dozen states. I mean, can you believe that? And of course, Joe Biden also wins the majority of the states. So eventually, it's going to be a presidential race between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, if he's not implicated by the time these elections actually happen in one of the cases that are going on against him. A lot of question marks, a lot of answers that will be given in due time. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of the day's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new story segments that pertain to us, you and Pakistan. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.